All Elite Wrestling, AEW, is one hot brand. And you can catch the action weekly live at 8 p.m. on TNT under the Turner Sports banner. Part of that action includes someone familiar with hot brands, a perfect fit to the All Elite Wrestling roster, the pride of St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, AEW's perfection, Shawn Spears. Thank you so much, Shawn. Right off the bat, NHL season, Ottawa Senators or Toronto Maple Leafs?
Oh, man, come on, man. You're going to put me in a hot seat like that? I'm going to disappoint everybody when I go out here and say Vancouver Canucks.
Whoa, man, you're going Finn. You're going with the mascot Finn and the Canucks.
Come on, man. I still keep it Canadian, but, my dad is a big, huge Leafs fan, and I grew up, on the Leafs, and I kind of just veered the opposite way and kind of just went with Vancouver. So, yeah, those are my guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, Shawn. Vancouver still has not won a Stanley Cup. Is this correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that ain't a lie. Rebuilding. We're rebuilding now. We freed up some money, and now it's time to rebuild.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Where do they stand right now? So they're in a rebuilding process. All right.
Oh, yeah. It's going to take a while.
All right. And then lastly, on the NHL, Shawn, because you played hockey, you were into hockey. Was that a goal when you were young? You wanted to make the NHL?
Yeah, if I was to say no, that'd be a lie. I think every young child that plays hockey or grows up playing hockey and loves hockey as much as I did, and still do, I think your goal is to ultimately play in the NHL. But as I got older, I was able to see that, you had to be quite exceptional to play at that level of hockey, and I just simply wasn't that exceptional at the game. But, God, what a sport. Love the sport. But things ended up turning out okay for me.
Yeah, I think they have. And lastly, did you have a favorite Canuck?
Oh, Pavel Bure, baby.
Oh, man, we know him from down here because he played a little bit down in South Florida with our Florida Panthers. So, yes, we know him, man. Very fast, very good skater.
Baby. The Russian rocket.
Yeah, man. All right, listen, let's get to the main event here. So, tell us about AEW on TNT.
Oh, God, what is there to say that isn't being said right now or isn't being echoed throughout every internet sports site, all over TNT, all over the world, quite frankly? AEW has taken the wrestling world, taken the sports world by storm. It's on the tip of everybody's tongue. Everybody's talking about it, and people are tuning in. And that is so exciting, and it's so refreshing. And those are the phrases that I hear thrown around the most. That people are excited. It can't miss television. And at the end of the day, being a part of AEW, I believe in their message, and their message to offer an alternative for our audience, for a wrestling fan that has been a fan for 20, 30 years, or if you just tuned in last year and you're a brand new fan, we want to cater to you as well. So we're providing options. We're providing a hell of a show, and you're going to see non-stop, top-notch, some of the best talent in the world. So I mean, you get it's a broad question, my man. You got to be more specific than that if you want to know about AEW. But that's what the general consensus is that I'm seeing anyway.
Well, I think you did a good job answering that type of question. Shawn, when you're making a decision like that to join a wrestling company, and obviously financial stability is important, and there are factors that are important, but for you, what are some of the things that stood out that said, you know what, I want to be a part of AEW?
It was the appeal of there was something new. It's no secret that I'm, good friends. I've mentioned it publicly before, and so is he. I'm good friends with the executive vice president. I've known Cody for a very, very long time. And I trust his business acumen. I believe in his belief in pro wrestling, which, stems from his father's belief in pro wrestling. And that appealed to me. And even after speaking with Tony Khan before any contract options were on the table, one thing he said to me that has stuck with me to this day is he believes in the spirit of pro wrestling. To him, some of his fondest memories of pro wrestling were when he would go over to his buddy's house when they were young kids, and they would have sleepover parties. They would watch the pay-per-views, and they would stay up until they could barely keep their eyes open because they were so young. They were so excited. And I used to do the same thing. I was able to resonate with that. I was able to understand that. So, to me, those are some of my fondest memories of wrestling growing up. And I also believe in the spirit of pro wrestling. So he wants to bring that back. Tony, everybody at AEW, they want to bring that idea, that concept back. So that was a massive, massive factor and appeal to me. But you're right, you nailed it. It was, being in it as long as I have. Financially, it is important, but for me personally, it isn't everything. I walked away from a great deal of money for the opportunity to wrestle and do things on my terms, because I'm the kind of guy that, at my age now, I'm able to look very far down the road. When I'm 70 years old, I might not be able to remember what I've done most of my career. Hopefully, I'll be able to remember the last few years of my in-ring career. So how do I want to remember that? Do I want to remember it in a way where I'm proud that I did it on my own terms, that I went out the way I wanted to? Or am I going to remember, when I'm 70 and I can't do much else anyway but think, all I'm going to be able to think about is whether or not I settled for, $1. So it was kind of, when I broke it down like that, psychologically, it was just a no-brainer to move on, make the jump, and do things on my own terms.
You mentioned when you were younger and watching it, who were some of the ones that you really enjoyed watching?
I was drawn to the very charismatic bad guys. It was, it was your Rick Martells, it was your Ravishing Rick Rudes, it was your Mr. Perfects, it was your, you love the Andre the Giant, just the massive structure of a man who didn't have to say much and just, he said everything with his eyes, like, Jake Roberts, guys like that. I just always felt were just, those guys just came through the screen to me. It was just, they were larger than life. And you hear that a lot, larger than life. But if these guys walked into an everyday average room full of people, you know who they were, or they would catch your attention. That's me, larger than life. But those were the guys that I was really drawn to. And as I got into the industry and as I learned how things actually worked as the years went on, I started kind of taking certain little aspects from each of these guys that I admired growing up and try to apply it to what I do today. And that's still an ongoing work in progress.
And from that, do we get the perfect 10 and perfection from Mr. Perfect?
No, that's not how that was born. I mean, there's only one Mr. Perfect. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I never, ever will ever be upset if someone ever says, oh, hey, Perfect 10 and Mr. Perfect in the same sentence. I'll never be upset about that because that is some incredible and overwhelming company to be in any way, shape, or form. But no, that's not where that stemmed from. But the admiration for him and how he carried himself, and even if I tried to do a perfect kind of character gimmick, no one can even come close to doing it as good as Hennig did. So, yeah, that guy was just exactly what he said he was, man. He was perfect.
And those vignettes they did leading up to that, where he was shooting baskets, hitting a home run, playing golf, those were great.
People still remember those, exactly. You still remember those. Tossing a football field, and then he'd run down and catch it on the other end. You're like, what is going on? Or how about every time he came to the ring, he would spit out his gum, be able to hit it. He'd throw up his towel, catch it every single time behind his back. You just, man, the guy was just, he was it. He just had it.
And when he hit the home run in Tampa, Wade Boggs, and that was legit. He actually, the first pitch, he cranked it out of there. I remember seeing a little documentary about that, and it's just awesome things. That's great that he was one of your idols when you were growing up. I want to ask you about AEW on TNT and the commentary team, and that commentary team includes Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. What is it like for you as a fan and as a performer or wrestler to have those two guys calling the action?
Oh, it's nostalgic, it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, it's a little bit of everything. And I say that because wrestling is so unique in many, many ways, but it's weird. Once you're in it, the possibilities are kind of endless. One day you're wrestling on an independent in, quite possibly middle of nowhere. The next night you're wrestling on live TV, TNT. You got some of the greatest announcers of all time talking about your match with your opponent, and you're walking to the ring with Tully Blanchard. What is happening? Wrestling is such a vast, massive time that's so small that anything could happen. You never know who you're going to meet, and then, you know, the people you're going to be working with and your peers and the people you're associated with, things change on a dime, and it's so it's so hard to put into words. But like when I did the sit down with Jim Ross early on in my AEW career, it was just I remember sitting there for a second. I'm like, sitting down with Jim Ross. There's only been, you know, not that many people have had the opportunity to actually do that, to have one-on-one interviews with Jim Ross. If you went through the list, probably not as long as you would think of it, you know, and then having, you know, one of the greatest professional wrestlers, a part of one of the greatest factions in history alongside you, it's overwhelming, it's exciting. I feel like a little kid again, even though I'm a grown-ass man. But to put it into words, I guess, which is very difficult, I just feel like a little kid again. And it's exciting every single week.
We'll get to Tully Blanchard in a second because that's awesome. Is it important for you, even at this stage of your career, to go back and watch your matches and listen to the commentary during your matches?
Absolutely. Our commentators are vital in trying to tell the story that we, as professional wrestlers, are trying to display in the ring. We have, all we can do is use the moves that we have learned throughout our career to help physically tell the story we're hoping to tell. The announcers are just as important as any other piece in that match, just as important as my opponent, my referee, anybody else, because they're the ones that are obviously verbally trying to tell the story that we're trying to portray. It just so happens that when you have guys like Tony Schiavone, and Jim Ross, like you said, Excalibur, guys that have a vast knowledge of professional wrestling, years upon years of experience, it becomes like clockwork. It becomes very easy. So if I'm doing my job very well, it's going to make it very easy for them to do theirs. So that's always the goal. But even when I go back and I watch the matches, and sometimes I still get like a little kid, I'm still giddy. I'm like, man, they're talking about me. It's still cool. And again, those guys, it's vital to have good announcers, especially with live television.
And now the formation with Tully Blanchard, how did that come about? And you did mention a little bit already just how excited you were to be a part of this. And are you learning from Tully as well? Is Tully offering you advice? Is it more of an on-camera role? What is the relationship there?
No, we speak at least a few times a week. He offers a ton of advice. So, I mean, yes, we are on screen together, but behind the scenes, the knowledge is being passed on, and I am more than willing to accept it with open arms. But no, we do have a personal relationship outside of our off camera. I went out, I think I did a show in San Antonio probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and that's where Tully lives. So I went out there early. We went to the gym together. We went out to eat. Went to his house for a little while. He shared stories. We talked about wrestling. So there is a bond there between he and I, which is wonderful because I think we're just scratching the surface in terms of what we can do. And from what I see and from what I hear, a lot of people are enjoying this pairing. Here's a guy that loves the industry. He's been away from the industry for a very long time, but he has not lost the depth, and the knowledge he has is second to none. So having him around me personally, selfishly, is, a blessing. But having him around AEW and that young talent coming up, it's just going to be more than beneficial for them, especially with television, live TV, because it's a big, fast-moving machine, and he understands that. So, no, it is a full-blown, he's a friend of mine. I respect him. I admire him. And hopefully that feeling is mutual.
Tully Blanchard, great wrestler. Obviously, the Four Horsemen, unbelievable. We're looking at younger talent now in AEW because that has been a big outcry. Let's elevate younger talent, new talent. What are your thoughts of some of the younger talent, and who's impressed you so far?
We have a lot of young talent, and I've heard that the goal of AEW is to elevate young talent. But remember, we're only a couple weeks in from television, so there is going to be time. But you can already see it happening with Sammy Guevara, for example, being a part of the Inner Circle with Chris Jericho. Like if you watch happened this past Wednesday, Sammy Guevara is standing up there. He's standing right beside Chris Jericho, and Chris Jericho is singing his praises. So in my eyes, and I've been around a long time, Sammy Guevara is a star. So hopefully in the eyes of the audience, that same thing is being portrayed. I think MJF, as much as I like to smack him in the mouth every now and then, he's a key young talent to keep an eye on. I think he's being positioned and molded for big things. Hangman Page, I don't think he's a young up-and-comer. He's got experience, television experience, but he's going to do some incredible things, I think, for AEW as well. There's a lot across the board. Britt Baker, in our ladies division, our women's division, she's going to do great things. It's going to take a little bit of time, but they're thrown into the fire. We're live Wednesday, TNT, every single week. So it's a learning curve, but it's an opportunity to make yourself a household name much faster than you possibly could have if you didn't work for AEW or any other big television something. So, and of course you got the chairman hanging around, baby. So I mean, stars upon stars.
The chairman, that's awesome. It reminds me, because I go back to the day, it reminds me a little bit, I know it's different, but it reminds me a little bit of La Parka, except you don't do the dance on the chair.
No, I'm not that talented, otherwise I would. I'd do a dance on a chair if I could. I get that all the time on social media. Well, I say something with the chairman, like, you're not La Parka, which is cool because, obviously that gimmick is remembered and, from the La Parka days, and that's how entertaining he was, that it stuck with people. It wasn't something that was planned, obviously. It was kind of something that just kind of fell into my lap, and I ran with it. So, La Parka, if you're listening, you're still the OG, man. You're still the original, but, evolution.
That's great. And Shawn, I want to ask this in a way, very simple question, but I think it's important too. In the ring, on camera, on TNT, AEW on TNT, who is AEW's Shawn Spears?
That's a good question. I don't think I've had that one before. The best way, who was I telling this to the other day? Or maybe I actually just said it in a quick little Q&A I held on Twitter probably about a month or two ago. The best way I can explain this is I've never felt more myself now since I've come to AEW. A lot of people will talk about the differences between, a previous persona and Ty Dillinger and now being Shawn Spears. I kind of put it this way. There never really was a Ty Dillinger. There was always a Shawn Spears. So I think when I was in other places, I didn't feel like myself, even if I was trying to allow myself to come to the forefront. It didn't work out that way. Here in AEW, I've been given all the leadway in the world to be myself. And as soon as I walked through the door, they're like, just be you. Go do what you want. And I said, okay. And that was a very refreshing feeling. And now I feel more like myself than I've ever been. And I think that's resonating with our audience. And I think that's coming through on camera. And I think that, like I said before, we're just scratching the surface. So a lot of people that still don't understand who I might be, because I wasn't on a great deal of television, for the last few years, you're going to get an opportunity to understand what I'm about personally, what Shawn Spears is about, what the chairman is about, and what the pairing of Tully Blanchard and Shawn Spears is all about. So that is exciting for me. So I think now more than ever, I am me, front and center. So what you see is what you get, and that I think is what's gonna sell the chairman on the floor.
Okay, Shawn, we're going to wrap this up. I just have a couple more questions for you, and we'll get through these.
Fire away, buddy.
When you were with the character, the persona, the Perfect 10, does a favorite moment come to mind for you? And I know you're going to make new memories and new moments now that you're with AEW, but I am curious, did you have a moment when you were the Perfect 10 Ty Dillinger that stands out?
Oh, I had a lot of moments. And I don't mean that in an egotistical kind of way. It's just that character caught fire, especially in NXT. It caught a great deal of fire, and very unexpectedly so. But there was moments with, coming out of the Royal Rumble, there was moments doing a takeover in Toronto, in front of, my hometown of, Canada, and, in the same arena I used to drive by on the Indies and said, I'm going to wrestle there one day. So having to accomplish things like that is huge. A lot of places where I would go to Australia and I go to Japan, and you have people from all over the world, that might not speak the same language you do, but they understand a universal chant, and they throw their hands in the air with you at the same time. Something like that resonates with people, or that you're able to connect with people on, is you can't put a price on that. I'll never forget a lot of stuff that was incredible that happened with that character. Didn't happen on television. It was just in arenas around the world that were not televised. Some good moments, but a lot of the private interactions with the 1,500 or 2,000 or 5,000 people that were in attendance that night with no television cameras were some of my fondest memories. But there were many. I'm very proud of that time. Very proud of that time of my career.
And now on your shirt, this is interesting. On your shirt, you have perfection. And am I right to say the I and the O in perfection is the number 10?
You got it.
So how did you come up with that? The chairman, Shawn Spears, Tully Blanchard, he's got a chair, and this cool shirt that has perfection with the number 10. Was that something you created, someone else did, or collaboration?
So with the, that's probably what I'm known for best, is my stint as a perfect 10. I never thought it got utilized to its full potential. So, of course, I'm going to keep what has worked. And people still chant that to me to this day, but the character has to evolve. There has to be some movement with it. So it went from kind of perfect 10 to perfection. I think the whole the 10 with imperfection came about because I tried to change my Twitter handle to perfection, but it was taken, like the actual word perfection. I went, damn. So going through a few things, I was like, oh. And then I think one of my buddies said, you should just put the I and the O as a 10. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And that's how that came about. And then, piecing together a new logo. That logo I created on that shirt is my logo personally. It's been created. It just matched. It just fit with that. So it's just an evolution of the perfect 10. Because, people still like it. I still enjoy doing it. And every now and then, I don't pull it out as much anymore since I've kind of, changed my mindset on how I perform in the ring. But it's still in there. That was the chairman thing that kind of, like I said before, that kind of fell into my lap. And, but again, that, when something like that comes along, it's best to roll with it, especially if the other people are. So a lot of things have been happening, and a lot of good things have been happening, and now it's just a matter of, portraying each thing to the audience in a way that they can understand and in a way that I hope they'll enjoy.
Well, there you go. He is a very good wrestler. He is creative, and he's a good man. And appreciate the time with the chairman, AEW, Shawn Spears. AEW on TNT, 8 p.m. Wednesdays. You got to check out the live action, the arena feel. Very cool. And I'll leave it with this, Shawn. Last question for you. Is it better to be perfect or iconic?
As long as she doesn't read this, it's way better to be perfect, baby. Way better.
Thank you so much, Shawn. All the best.
Take care, sir. Thanks for having me.